therein is the proof of why emotional intelligence needs to be fundamental in our society, because that hatred, that level of hatred comes from being hurt and not knowing how to process it, so they become hateful and jaded.
Yeah, totally. So
That is absolutely insane. There's this guy in the Philadelphia area who is mentally unstable, and I always was very nice to him, and I'd always try and like encourage him, and he'd put these like crazy posts on Facebook, and I'd send him videos to like about like positive mindset and like versus victim mindset, because every post was like a victim. His family attacked him and stole everything from him, and then all of a sudden everyone in Philadelphia is against him, and his business has failed because of everybody. And I was like, Chris, like, when there's a common denominator, you need to look at the common denominator. Like, all of your family alienate you, all of Philadelphia, like, there's a common denominator here. And just recently he's become like very aggressive, and there's a lot of noise going on. He became very aggressive in sending these inbox emails to me and other people, and just very aggressive. Like, people in the elite of Philadelphia better watch their backs, like attacking kind of things. May 6th, everything's going to change. And I called one of my good friends who's like the top detective in Philadelphia, and I was like, listen, I don't overreact about things, but my background is in human behavior, and this is like extremely scary behavior, because the type of person who something could happen and we'll all look back and be like, all the signs were there, and no one, kind of like the guy with the truck, like all these signs were probably there, and everyone was too afraid to say something. So it got so crazy that Homeland Security is actually involved in it right now, because I sent all the text messages and Facebook posts to this detective, and he agreed that they were so crazy that this is the kind of thing where somebody goes postal and starts shooting up people, and no one said anything about, but there were so many times you could have stopped it. And I never wanted to ever once in my life be in the middle of something like that. But I'll be happy if it like keeps something horrible from happening.
Yeah, exactly.
But on a more positive note, the positive of it is all of us are learning emotional intelligence here, and all of us have the opportunity to try and help other people and raise awareness of the importance of emotional intelligence in our society. And that's really how do you solve this problem? You know, people talk about taking guns away and gun reform and all this stuff, but like, healthy people, mentally and emotionally healthy people could have a million guns and bombs and everything in front of them, and they're not going to use them. And that's my point consistently, is if we could help people to become more, not just mentally ill, emotionally ill. People say mental illness all the time, and I think what we're really suffering from is emotional illness that can cause mental illness. But it's emotional illness first and foremost, because feeling hurt and sad about something and feeling hurt or rejected by somebody causes this mental anguish, but it's the emotional pain first that causes the mental anguish. And so I think we've been looking at it all wrong all of these years. So anyway, I want to go back into kind of picking up where we left off last week into beliefs before we add some new content in. We were talking a lot about beliefs last week, because beliefs are the core aspect of how we feel and how we perceive the world and how we navigate the world, because our beliefs are center to all the habits that we have, all the assumptions that we make, the interpretations that we make. Every interpretation we have is based on a belief that we have. So an easy example of this is we've all met the person that no matter what you say to them, they're defensive. So that person typically believes the world's against them, everyone's after them, everyone's trying to put them down. Like this guy that I was just talking about had that belief of like, the world's against me. So no matter what someone would do to help this guy would be really hard to get through to him right now, because he's already created this belief that created this wall that created, no matter what someone's doing, even if it's nice and right with a good intention, he perceives it in a negative way, because the belief is everyone's against me. Everyone is after me. So if we don't understand our beliefs, then we're not going to be able to master our lives at all. And beliefs are hard to challenge, because for a lot of people, they feel like once the belief is set, it's hard to challenge a belief in somebody. I actually was working with this course earlier today, and this guy said it's really hard for me to challenge my beliefs because I believe something. So when someone's saying something and it's irritating me, I'm still thinking I'm right. And that's the interesting part about beliefs that a lot of people don't realize. That makes it hard for people to dive deeper into the belief systems that they have. So I'm going to go back to what we were talking about last week. When we understand, when we become aware, then we can identify our beliefs, and then we can identify or create new habits to create new outcomes. If you can't get to seeing a lot of the beliefs that you have, you can always start with outcomes that you don't like in your life. Like, I haven't reached a certain goal that I wanted to reach. I don't have the types of relationships I want. I haven't found the right partner. So my girlfriends in Philly, I think I mentioned this last week, have this, they all, the single ones, will all say, oh, there's no great guys in Philly. They're all taken. There's none here. And I'll say, okay, great. Now your belief will create your outcome. Because if you walk around with that belief, number one, your ego is seeking to be right. So your ego will actually seek out all the jerks of Philadelphia. Your energy will project this wall around you with this belief. And then your ego will be like, right, see, I told you. And your ego will seek to prove you right. So if you don't like these outcomes that you're having, you always need to start to go back and look at the beliefs that are associated with them. And because associated to every belief is an emotion, right? So I said with my girlfriend's example, like, they're walking around with this negative energy around them when it comes to guys. So a guy approaches them or thinks to even approach them, they're projecting this icky, kind of bitchy energy. They're not bitchy girls, but they're literally projecting this energy that's kind of bitchy and not approachable. And so I always say to them, until you change that belief, you're not going to change your energy, because beliefs are attached to emotions, and then you're not going to change your outcome. So again, if you don't like the outcomes that you're having, and you're always trying to achieve certain goals or attain certain aspects of your life, start to really evaluate, like, what are the beliefs that I'm carrying around? What habits is it causing? What emotions is it causing? Because the emotions cause my frequency to be a good or bad frequency. So another pattern system in this to look at is, again, once we become more aware, we can notice our behaviors, and then we can uncover the roots of our beliefs. And then once we uncover the roots of those beliefs, we can literally, like a plant in soil, lift that root out, take it out, just like we would take that out of the neural pathways of our brain, and plant a new one, plant a new belief, reframe a belief. And then we can start to grow that belief and strengthen that belief. But you can't just think that you're going to, like, plant a new belief and then you're done and you're on your merry way and everything's just perfect. Just like last week, where the guy had to keep riding the bike 5 minutes a day for 8 months, you have to stay consistent in nourishing that new pattern and behavior. So I shared earlier today another example of, an outcome you might not like. So not anyone in here, but someone in general, it's a common one, is, someone who's always tried to lose that last 10 to 15 pounds, but they just can't. 3 years later, they're still in the same exact place, and they're like, I don't know why I can't lose this weight. I'm eating more consciously and I'm exercising a little bit more. And so when you dive in it, you're like, okay, so how often are you exercising? Well, like maybe 3 times a week, sometimes 1 time a week. Okay, so in the last 4 weeks, what did you average? Well, it was a busy month, so like once a week. Okay, so you only worked out once a week. That's not going to move the needle too much. So once a week for the last 4 weeks, it's only 4 times in 30 days. So I wouldn't really say, because sometimes what we think we're doing and what we're actually doing can be very different things too. So I don't think 4 days is really going to make a significant difference. So let's look at the eating. You said you're eating better. Like, give me an example of a day. Well, in the morning, I start with some cereal with milk. What kind of cereal with milk? Lucky Charms. Okay, that's probably about 10 to 12 grams of sugar. And all right, it's gluten-free, but it's still not a healthy protein, clean choice. And then what kind of milk are you using? Skim. Well, that's 12 more grams of sugar. So that's not really a healthy breakfast at all. What are you eating for lunch? And then you go down there a whole entire average day and you're like, well, that's not really healthy. It might be healthier than what you were, but you're not going to lose that last stubborn 10 to 15 pounds eating that, because now you're just kind of at like a complacent meal plan. And so then when you go back to the exercise, like, why aren't you exercising more? Well, I hate exercising. So their belief is that they hate exercising. So it's going to be really hard to motivate somebody to exercise more if they hate exercising. And then it's going to be really challenging for them to stick with exercising if that's already the belief. So then you could say to somebody, let's reframe your belief. Why do you hate exercising so much? Well, it's painful. Well, it doesn't need to be painful. It could be a lot of fun. Did you ever do, an exercise class in a group with a good instructor? No, I feel too uncomfortable to do that. Well, let's maybe change that. Everyone in that classroom feels uncomfortable doing it the first few times. And then they're in there and they're like, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? It's so much more fun. It's like working out together. You're feeding off people's energy. The music's playing loud. The instructor's motivating you and guiding you and pushing you. And it can be a lot of fun. Like, think about how good you feel once you're done exercising. So start to stay focused on that before you go exercise instead of how much you hate it. And then let's reframe the belief. Like, exercise doesn't need to hurt. I mean, it should push you a little bit, but it doesn't need to be painful. And it can be a lot of fun. And at least that gets them to move the needle. Obviously, if you're setting your fitness goals higher, it's going to be a bit more painful and it's going to be a bit more challenging. But somebody who's trying to change their belief around exercise, you don't want to affirm a belief, yes, it's very painful, and yes, it's going to hurt, and you're going to be dripping sweat and feel like you're like barely walking out of the workout session. You want to get them to create a new belief system first, and then you can get them to love it and then desire it more and desire the outcome more. So when you uproot the belief, the old belief that no longer serves you, you plant a new one, you have to keep affirming it. So if someone changed their belief system around exercise, they'd want to do affirmations around exercise. They'd want to stay focused when they're exercising on everything they love about it. Like, you know what? That workout wasn't so bad. I had such a fun time. I met a bunch of people in my class. The music was a really good time, and getting them to see all the good and value. And when I left, I was so energized. And then it can strengthen the new neural pathways in their brain around that belief. And then it becomes a new pattern. Another way to really handle beliefs is to understand the power of our perspective. So our perspective is the only thing we have control of. And we can change our perspective in a second. Literally in a second. When you think about a time in your life, because we've all had times in our life, when we make an assumption of something. And we know we are right in our assumption. And then somebody challenges us on it, and we realize our assumption was completely wrong. completely wrong. So I'll give you an example of this. When Steve and I first started dating, he has a belief that guys and girls can't be friends. Like, he has no girlfriends. And that's been a belief his whole life. And I mean, there's girls that he's friendly with in our social circle, but he doesn't text girls like, hey, where are you going? What are you doing? He would never ask like a girl to go to a game with him unless it's me. And so meanwhile, I had guy friends my entire life, sometimes more guy friends than girlfriends, especially in high school when I wanted to stay away from all the girl drama. And I would go to games with guys all the time, and I would I felt very comfortable in the circle of guys. And basically, when we first started dating, he'd get so angry every time I would talk to guys because he thought I was like hitting on them or flirting with them. And I'd always be like, what are you talking about? You're acting crazy. You're acting insane. Like, I'm not doing anything that you're talking about. But because his belief system on guys and girls can't be friends, he saw me interacting with a guy, which meant nothing, literally nothing to me. It's very comfortable. It's very natural to me. And he made it his assumption to be true. She's hitting on that guy. She must like that guy. And all these issues would transpire. And I finally was like, wait, what is your belief? Like, I'm literally not doing anything wrong, but you think I am. Even if I would like touch a guy's like arm, because I touch, like when I talk to people, I touch them. It's part of body language that's empowering. As a motivational speaker, to have like a human connection is a very important thing. To basically say, I care, I'm paying attention, I'm listening. And he'd be like, oh my God, you were all over that guy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so this caused a lot of problems in the beginning of our relationship till we understood that, till I understood his belief, until he understood my belief, and that we understood where each other were coming from to navigate the situations differently. So I wasn't willing to, I didn't believe his belief system. And in this specific situation, I told him I'm not changing. I'm still, for 40 some years, I've had guy friends. I'm still going to have guy friends, and I'm not going to diminish that. However, I will be more conscientious when I'm talking to somebody that you might feel a certain way, and make sure I'm bringing you into the situation until you know the guy and understand the dynamic. Even though that was a stretch for me, because I grew up with the belief like I shouldn't have to affirm that. I understand that I should, if I care about somebody, I should help them in supporting creating a new belief until he could get to understand that I really am friends with tons of guys, and it means nothing, and it's completely innocent. So I had to navigate, I had to understand his perception, and he had to understand my perception. So I didn't change my perception, I didn't change my belief, but I understood his perception, so I could create new beliefs around it or new habits around it. So the fastest way to become a more effective leader in your home, leader in your community, leader in your business, is to understand that we can see multiple perceptions in every situation. I've said this before. Your perception is not truth. It is just your perception. And the faster we learn that, the faster we can realize that it would behoove us to develop the skill set of seeing multiple perceptions of every situation, because there are multiple perceptions. There is no black and white. And the more we can see these multiple perspectives in all of these different situations, the better we're going to be at connecting with people, empathizing with them. So I had to empathize with Steve of what he might have been thinking based on his belief. But then I could educate him more effectively in the process to get him to understand my perception as well. I could do it with more patience. And so an effective leader can see multiple perceptions, guess what they are before they even have a conversation with somebody, and then it can help you create new beliefs, multiple beliefs based on the situations. Quite honestly, I've used the example about if a kid who grows up in like the hood and has no parents and guidance and are literally fighting for their lives on a daily basis, and it's kill or be killed. I've used this example before where if they kill somebody, it is not the same if some kids from my kids' school did the same thing because they had guidance and tools and knew right from wrong differently. And they weren't in a kill or be killed environment. So while killing someone is still wrong, we can understand why they did it more empathetically. And we can also understand that the beliefs that they had, if I don't shoot this person, they're going to shoot me first. Again, I don't agree with that belief system, but I can understand that belief system. So you can apply this to relationships, you can apply this to work, you can apply this to exercise, wellness, every aspect of your life. You know, just today, my daughters we were driving home from track meet, and my daughters asked me to get this thing that their friend ate. And I was like, well, what is it? And they're like, this chicken, pasta, broccoli thing. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds healthy. Minus the pasta, unless it's like gluten-free or whatever, chickpea pasta or something. And so I said, well, we'll ask her what it is. Like, where did she get it? So they text her and she responds, it's lean cuisine. And I'm like, that's horrible. No, I'm not getting lean cuisine. And they're like, well, it's supposed to be really healthy. And I was like, to someone who doesn't know better, that's healthy. It's healthier than most things in our dinner scale if we're dining out. But I mean, it's not. It's filled with chemicals. Anything like that is filled with chemicals. So I'll get you pasta, broccoli, and chicken, and then I'll make it at home myself, and it'll be even better. So the perception of the girl that ate it, that their friend that was eating it, compared to the way her family normally eats, that is really healthy. So it's relative. But and so their belief was that this is very healthy. But then I enter in with a different belief that it's not healthy because it's full of chemicals, because I have more knowledge around something too. So sometimes beliefs can come out of pure ignorance, and sometimes we just need to educate somebody. So I'm sure they're going to go back to their girlfriend and say, my mom wouldn't buy it because she said it's not healthy. And this little girl actually really listens when I give advice around like sugar and food and stuff. And I'm sure they're going to go back and be like, well, it's not really healthy because it has all these chemicals in it. And my mom was saying, like, it's one of the worst things that you could eat from a chemical standpoint. And then hopefully she'll go back and tell her mom, and they'll be educated. So they're making decisions out of ignorance right now. The belief is that's healthy because it's healthier than most things. But the truth is it's filled with chemicals. So understanding that there's multiple perspectives to every situation, and there's multiple beliefs. We don't have to believe the belief, but we can understand a belief. And then understand that sometimes beliefs that basically exist out of pure ignorance of anything else to challenge that belief. So here's a checklist. Oh, by the way, Heather, I'm sorry. I actually saw what you wrote. I couldn't minimize the screen, so I couldn't respond right away. But I'm so glad you used that analogy for your productivity, the fitness analogy. And that's so funny. I never knew you had the same belief as Steve. It's just interesting. You and I can have a conversation off the side, because that's interesting to know now that I know you. And where that belief came from. So anyway, a checklist, this is a checklist that I created that I used when I was first really heightening my sense of mastery and emotional intelligence. And I wanted to be able to translate it for people, because as we get into a situation that can ignite us, we need processing skills. And this checklist became my ability to process. Like, this was my checklist to process. So the other day, Sunday, I was speaking all weekend in Arizona, and Sunday I had to fly from Phoenix to Fort Lauderdale to speak at an event first thing Monday morning, kicking off a keynote and then doing another one after that. One was first thing in the morning, then there was an hour between, and then another one right after that. And so I had an hour time delay between my connecting flights. And so my first flight in Phoenix started to board late, like a half hour late, which then started freaking me out, because now it's eating into my time to be ready for to land and get to my next flight. And so I was starting to get stressed, and then I thought to myself, okay, well, at least if this does happen, there's probably other flights out tonight. We're landing in Dallas, it's a big hub. So we finally take off like 40 minutes late. Now I'm really freaking out. Oh, before we do that, the huge part of the story. As I'm getting on the plane, I have my carry-on. I never check luggage. Because I travel so much that I know that once you check your luggage, you could be at the mercy of the airlines for days. So I'm walking on the plane, and the lady says to me, "You need to check your luggage. This plane is full and there is no space left in the overhead." And I said, "I am not checking this luggage, because I have about a 30-minute window to get to my flight, which means if I check this, even if I make it to my flight, my luggage is not making it with me." She said, "I'm sorry, you can't get on, overhead's full." And I said, "Well, you need to get somebody else to take their luggage off. I'm not doing it." And she said, "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you again." And then I started getting nervous, like, am I going to get in trouble by TSA? And I said to her, I go, "Listen, I'm landing in Fort Lauderdale tonight, like late tonight. And then I speak first thing in the morning. And if you take this and I lose this, I will be speaking in front of thousands of people in workout clothes. So you cannot take this bag." And she didn't care. So anyway, I have to check my luggage, and which, remember, was never meant to happen. It was carry on. And I land and I run, and I make them close from them closing the door by like seconds, except for they gave my seat away. So I made it. The flight actually got delayed, but they gave my seat away. And it was the last flight out to Fort Lauderdale that day. So then I'm panicking, because they're like, "Well, we booked you on the 10:30 flight tomorrow morning," which is 12:30 in Fort Lauderdale, which is way later than my speaking engagement. So then I was like, okay, listen, I need to get on a flight to Miami, because I can't miss this. So I basically get on a flight to Miami, and I said to the guy at the American Airlines counter, "Can you please make sure my bag gets from the flight that it just got off of to onto my flight?" He said, "I can't guarantee that." And I said, "How difficult could it be? Like, there's tracking things on all of our on all of our luggage now. Like, how hard is it for you to communicate to whoever handles the bag area to get that onto this flight? It should not be that hard. There's almost 3 hours for it to be accomplished." So he said, "I can't guarantee it. I can message them, but I can't guarantee it." So I posted something on Twitter, because I knew that they could see that I have a big following, and then having a big following, they would take action. So they responded to me, and they were like, "How can we help?" And I said, forget the fact that I'm really angry that you made me check my bag. I'll forget the fact that I'm really angry that you gave my seat away, and you knew the flight was going to land on time, and you knew the flight would be delayed, and you gave my seat away. I'll forget about all that for a second, as long as you please promise me that you can get my bag on this flight. The lady on the other side of the Twitter basically was like, I'm almost positive it will make it. I'm going to message them, blah, blah, blah. I land in Miami now at 1:30 in the morning, and my luggage is not there. So I now am even more angry. I was like really angry, but I'm needing to take every ounce of, I do need my own plane, Chris. Thank you. I needed every ounce of emotional intelligence I had in that moment, because now I'm super tired. All these sequences of events happen due to their lack of, to their negligence and their bad business practices, and not listening to a customer when the customer is saying, I cannot put this. It's not like I'm saying I just want my bag because I want my bag. I'm telling you, I had a keynote speech to do tomorrow in front of thousands of people in the morning. And anyway, my bag never made it. I did wind up teaching in front of all of these corporate people in yoga pants and a sweatshirt. It made for a good story. Positive was made for a good story.
I had to take myself off silence on this. This is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I want names. I want numbers. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Good Lord.
Oh, yeah. I know, Chris.
Ben, this tops the story of 20 years ago? What was the makeup you used? The Bobby Brown, or and they lost your makeup bag? And
oh, that was when I went to Mexico. That was the last time I checked luggage, Chris.
I had a feeling it was linked to that.
That was the last time I ever checked luggage, was that day, that event where I had to get makeup from like a 7-Eleven.
Oh my God. I guess you were planning on wearing a dress for a keynote speak, and then you end up in yoga pants. Unbelievable.
A dress and cool stilettos, nonetheless, and like a power outfit, and I'm in sneakers, yoga pants.
Man, girl, you were getting your wings. Did you explain it to the audience, or what did you do?
Yeah, so I opened up by, I joked. I made a joke. I go, so y'all thought you were coming here for emotional intelligence class, and the truth is they tricked you into fitness class. And everyone's face was like, what? And I was like, just kidding. I was like, how many of you have ever had the nightmare travel experience with an airline? And they're like, oh. I go, yeah. Well, I had one yesterday, and that is why I'm dressed like I am teaching a fitness class right now. And so, it's interesting because everyone had empathy. It kind of like was a cool icebreaker. People thought it was funny. I kept referencing to it the entire time, kind of like joke about it while I was teaching the lesson. But yeah, it was really uncomfortable when I was first walking into the big room I was teaching in, and I could see everyone's dressed up, and I could see people looking at me like, why is this girl here in like workout clothes? Like,
and you're dressed like that. Well, one thing, it probably made you look even younger. So now they're thinking, why is this 20-year-old coming in here telling us what to do? Oh my God. So that is unbelievable. If that is just another notch in how nothing knocks you off your game. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Well, let me tell you, the amount of restraint it took me at 1:30 in the morning at the Miami airport baggage claim to not freak out. I'm telling you, I was like, this is such a great test for me right now. Like,
yeah,
I always feel like I'm on candid camera. To see, like, how does this emotional intelligence expert handle complete and utter chaos while she's completely exhausted? And the thing is, as this is happening, I know that I still have a 40-minute ride to Fort Lauderdale. Then I still need to check in my hotel, and I know I wouldn't be to bed till 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to get up at 6:30.
I taught emotional intelligence on Zoom last night, and got completely thrown off because when the girl got on, somehow it knocked my picture off. So I was like talking to a black screen, and I'm thinking, okay, that was enough to mess me up. Listen to what you just went through. I got a lot of work ahead of me.
Listen, I'm not kidding. I really was like, am I on candid camera? Like, this has to be a joke. this can't be happening.
You don't have EI. You don't have EI all over your suitcase, do you? Like in gold. They'll probably be like, let's put this girl on YouTube. She's an EI expert. We'll see what makes her crack.
I honestly, when my triggers wanted to be triggered, I honestly thought like this could be being videotaped right now. So I need to like walk my walk, even though this very moment, my ability to walk my walk is very much diminished. Because so many things happen along the way. Plus now I'm exhausted. Plus now I know it's going to make me exhausted for what I needed to be there for. So
how long did you have to talk for when you got there?
My opening keynote was an hour, and then I had an hour break, and then I spoke for an hour again.
Holy crap. Okay, I don't want to interrupt your class. And then I want to hear how it went with Robert Kiyosaki too.
I will save that for the end.
That's super bad. Okay, I'll put myself on mute. Thanks for the share.
Really funny. Okay, thanks for jumping in. I love the laugh. So in that moment, as I walk up to the baggage claim counter and I wanted to lunge across at the girl, even though I knew it was not her fault, I just wanted somebody to take accountability, and no one was taking accountability. I honestly wanted to go back in time and find the lady at the counter that made me check my bag, because I would have been totally cool, not totally cool, but I would have been okay. Like travel's travel, things happen. Having to take a later flight to Miami and then a 40-minute ride to Fort Lauderdale. But the luggage part was the thing that like tripped me up in this whole process. So thank God I had my makeup. Thank God I had my makeup in my purse. That lesson was learned from my Mexico trip that Chris referenced many years ago, where I was going for a meeting at like 7 o'clock in the morning with one of the biggest retailers. And I did that meeting in yoga pants. That meeting, I didn't have a brush or any makeup at all. So that one was a little bit more difficult while I'm shopping in a Mexican comparison of a 7-Eleven with makeup I can't even read the language on, and it was just a hot mess. So anyway, as I'm gaining my composure, I'm thinking, okay, why do you really feel so angry? Which I kind of just outlined for you. Like, I feel so angry because I'm going to be speaking for this huge organization that could be potentially a very profitable business partner for me long term, and I'm going to show up in yoga pants. So, okay, that's why I feel this way. And then I feel this way because I'm tired. I feel this way probably because I'm a little bit hungry because I didn't really eat dinner. And so I went through this whole like emotional awareness, like, why are you feeling this way? And then the next question you can really ask yourself is it really real? Is what I'm feeling real? And in that moment, it was 1000% real. But a lot of times it's not real. So the other part of that question is it my ego running the show, right? So I use that example with Steve and I when we first started dating, this clash, and we both have very strong personalities, and this clash of like needing to be right. Like, he needed to be right, that his belief was right, and then I wasn't backing down that my belief was right, and I'm sitting there going, well, I'm not changing because I don't agree with your belief. I think your belief is totally scarcity minded and fear based, and I don't agree with it. So instead of being a little bit more soft, and so my ego in that stance is running the show, and so being like, you know what, I'm sorry that your belief system is different than mine. I don't necessarily agree with yours, but I can understand it. So while I still will always be friends with guys, I would like to handle situations or circumstances differently to make you feel more comfortable, so that you can see into my world, into my belief system, and not feel as much anxiety about it or threatened by it. So that is the emotional intelligent way. But truly in the beginning, I was like, well, I'm not changing. I don't agree with your belief, which was totally my ego running the show. And then the next question is, where is this coming from? Like, is there a trigger that's deeper than what's happening in this moment? And usually there is. So, I was thinking about this on the next day on the flight home from Florida, and I was thinking, like, was there a deeper trigger involved in that? And I thought about and I don't know if this is exactly, if this was there and triggering it more, but it very well could be. When I was younger, my mom had a TV show, and I was a kid commentator, and I'd go out the street and interview people, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. And then I got kids at school started seeing me on TV and knowing what I was doing. And of course, kids being kids as they are, kids would make fun. They were jealous. They were like, instead of like, oh, that's so cool, you interviewed Steve Carlton, who's like a baseball legend, they would make fun of my hair or my clothes or something. So I do believe that this overriding like anxiety about having to speak in front of an audience in yoga pants and sweatshirt and sneakers definitely has like a tie back to that time in my life where I'm afraid of this judgment or afraid of rejection around that judgment, which could be just playing minimally into it. I mean, the forefront of my mind is like, well, I'm walking in this corporate environment in yoga clothes, which would be totally fine if I was in the fitness industry and I was speaking at a fitness conference. But in that environment, I knew I was going to be dressed differently than everyone else in that space. And then another question is, how could I see it differently? So what different perspective can I have here? So as I'm feeling so agitated by this baggage claim person, and no one can give me an answer, and no one is accountable, and no one really even seems remorseful for that matter, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, cool. So people are this is going to be a funny opening story, and people are going to feel empathy for me, and there's going to be transparency, and it could create more bonding. And the lesson, in all of this is going to be great. And I slept on the plane. So yeah, I know I'm not going to sleep but 3 hours once I get back, but I slept on the plane. So, it's not so bad. And so I'm trying to get new perspectives. I'm trying to grasp it, seeing things differently. So I'm not as angry in this situation. And then the last part is what am I supposed to be learning? What lessons have I learned here? And this to me is the most valuable question of all the questions, because if you approach every single experience by what is my lesson? What am I supposed to be learning? Then no experience, no matter how bad it is a bad experience, because it's actually a good experience. Every bad experience actually becomes a good experience once you identify the lesson in it. So for me, the lesson was multiple things. The lesson was check in earlier, because I checked in later that day, which I sometimes do. I just get so busy doing my thing, and then I check in too late. So from now on, I will set an alarm to check in the second that hits that 24-hour mark, so that I get a grouping. So now I don't know if you guys know this, but on airlines, it doesn't matter what seat you're sitting in, what group you get in, it's when you check in. So I could be in row 2, but if I check in too late, I'm in group 8, which means everyone else already put their luggage on before me. So that was one of my lessons. The other lesson was, if that situation was to happen again with the rollerboard, I, instead of talking to that lady, would have immediately asked for her manager. And then I would have created some sort of accountability strategy, which I have to think through a little bit more. I hope I never have to use an accountability strategy, but an accountability strategy for that person that makes that judgment call in a situation that is so critical in timing. What they really should have said is, anyone who has a connecting flight takes their luggage on, and anyone who doesn't, then you stow your luggage. So that's really how it should have been handled. And that was my suggestion to American Airlines. Like, when you have situations like this, and people can't fit the rollerboards on, anyone who has a connection should get first priority on having a rollerboard. And anyone who's then not getting a connecting flight, then they should stow it first. My solution to a $1 billion company. I don't know how hard that was. Anyway, so I really sit there and ask myself, what are lessons? I had a business partner quite a few years ago with my handbag company, who blatantly stole millions of dollars from my company and put my company in a very compromising position. And when I realized that this was happening, I could have gotten really angry and went ballistic and sued them and caused this big lawsuit and been angry and jaded, and I'll never have a business partner again. I'll never trust anyone. I could have gone down the path that most people would have gone down. And so when people knew the situation, they were like, Jen, aren't you going to sue them? I mean, this is crazy. You should be so mad and you should be doing all these things. And I'm like, if I sue them, I will spend the next 3 to 5 years of my life looking backwards. And God, I know, has given me enough talent, creativity, and ability to create all over again if I need to. And so if I'm looking backwards, I'm not looking forward. If I'm looking backwards in anger, my energy is going to be drained and depleted. I'll probably exacerbate my adrenal glands. I'll probably re-exacerbate my Hashimoto's disease, which is my thyroid, which at that point was completely healed. Or at least, I should say, at least in a place where I didn't need medication, because anytime my immune system gets compromised, it can always come back. But I decided I wasn't looking backwards. I decided that I was going to just focus on the lesson. And the lesson in that story was, I knew that these men were not of the highest integrity. I knew that they were squirmy and shady. I knew that they would probably steal from their mothers. However, they own the entire 4th floor of the Empire State Building. They fly their helicopters to and from Brooklyn each morning to work, and their private jets to Aventura, Florida on the weekends and the winters. And they owned all these restaurants and nightclubs in the city, and Calvin Klein and Eli Tahari and Vera Wang were doing a deal with them at the same time I was, so it's made my ego feel so good. And the thing is although I intuitively knew that they were not of the highest integrity, my ego wanted that deal to happen. And so I went against my intuition, followed my ego. And so the wisdom of this huge lesson was, I would never, ever, ever doubt my intuition again. And that's a really powerful lesson in life and in business. And I've never doubted it again since. Even if I can't explain why something's just not feeling right, I just won't do it. Which then, I believe everyone should follow their intuition, but some people, I believe everyone has the ability of intuition. I believe women are keyed into it a lot more from birth, because we're able to talk about our feelings a lot more, which means we're more feeling aware. But I do believe developing your intuition skills is a skill set that can be developed. And so for me, making that commitment, I also needed to develop that skill set a lot more. And I develop it all the time I'll just test certain things. I'll just test certain things that I just know, or I'll just think of certain things and watch them appear. And so I test my instincts often. And it builds my confidence in my belief, in my abilities, to especially not doubt. So biggest question is always, what am I learning from this experience? And once you can get to a place where that is your default, or that's where you go to immediately, then you will never feel that any experience, even if it's not a fun experience, was wasted on you. This I say all the time, but just as a reminder, we have control of one thing only in this world, and it is our perspective. So choosing on what I just said, choosing to see a lesson, choosing to see the beauty, choosing to find the good in things, that's in our control at all moments. Next week, we're going to start off with this slide where I break down the most common emotionally unintelligent behaviors or emotions, and I teach you the opposite of them, which will help you start to identify when I'm acting out of a place of judgment. I can quickly shift to a place of inspiration. And I'll go into depth on each one next week. But with that, as we're running out of time, I want to, Chris asked about Robert Kiyosaki. So I want to address that. For those of you who don't know, Robert Kiyosaki wrote the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read the book when it first came out, 1998, and it changed my entire life. It was the time Chris, who was on here, and I knew each other then. And I think, Chris, you can unmute yourself and chime in if you want, but I think Chris
Yes.
So you probably saw, like, right around the time I was reading that book and a couple other ones, a huge acceleration in my path.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think you gave me a copy of that book.
I did.
And then, you just started, believe me, if I wasn't married with 2 little kids, I would have been running around with all the stuff you did, right?
Yeah.
But, well, then from, I don't know whether it was from there, like the 3% Club. Like,
Yep. Same. Yep. Right after that. Yep.
You learned so much about money and the value. Jen, I don't know whether you learned it I just told this to my class about learning, like, the value of your finances. And I remember you telling me that, I don't know whether it would have been him where you went, but they were like, open your wallet, or they asked you how much money you had in your wallet.
Yep.
And then when you open your wallet, how was all your money arranged?
Yep.
And that's your relationship with money.
Yep.
And I did that on my call,
Awesome.
my last emotional intelligence thing. Everybody was like, oh my God, that was so powerful. So now a couple of the girls I know, they're like, we're on a savings plan. We're saving so much money a month. And, but just so you know that you shared that with me, and it always left an impression with me. And then I got to teach some people that, but, only that you knew him through a book, and now here you are with all your vision teaching with them. It's just fascinating. And then just so, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to address 2 things right now. So first is, as a speaker, I always have goals, bucket list items of who I want to be speaking on a stage with at events. Robert Kiyosaki being one. But I actually was talking about it this weekend, and somebody asked me, they were like, well, who are some of the other people that you've checked off the list? And I was like, I started my list, and I was like overwhelmed with, like, holy smokes. Like, I was like, well, Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk and Susie Orman and Barbara Corcoran and Dennis Waitley. And I literally kept going on, and they were like looking at me, and they're like, what? Like, why isn't this all over your bio? And I'm like, that's a great point. That probably should be on my bio. Because Dr. Oz, I mean, like, I just kept going on, and they're like, you spoke on the same stage with all these people. And I'm like, yeah.
Wait, you spoke with, you were with Tony Robbins and Gary V?
Yeah.
When was that? Because I'm going to see them.
So, you're going to that event. I won't go to that event for the key reason that they do not ask women to speak at their events. Anyway, notice that there's 6 male keynotes for that event.
Yeah. Well, wait. So that particular venue, you mean? Because if you were with Vaynerchuk and Tony Robbins before, then that was somebody else running it.
No. So Tony and I have spoke for USANA a bunch of times together, and then also at the Learning Annex in New York City. That was like the Learning Annex one was probably back in 2006 or 7. I mean, it was like early Butler Bag days. 2000. It was multiple years. So we speak at this event, this event. And Gary V was when Gary V was first getting on the scene. So I'd speak with him a bunch between 2010 to 2013. Like, he was at one of my birthday parties, maybe my 35th birthday party.
Get out.
Yeah. He wasn't the same level he is right now. He was still like majorly skyrocketing at that time period.
Right.
But yeah, Darren Hardy. I mean, I started listing all these people, and I was like, holy smokes, like, this is crazy. But the emotional affinity to be around Robert Kiyosaki that book really was such a massive tipping point in my life. And just for everybody to know, we talked about belief systems and manifestation and all that. Oh yeah, Heather, Tony, and you were at the first Donna conference.
That's cool, Heather. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yep. So the thing with Robert Kiyosaki is, number one, reading his book accelerated the trajectory towards my success, because my dad was the poor dad mindset, and to have this rich dad mindset, the way he created the parallel in the book was so powerful for me. But thanks, Heather. I appreciate it. That was an amazing year, amazing convention year. But then, I think I told you guys the PBS story, but just as a refresher, when my kids were toddlers, and I put them down for a nap, and Sesame Street must have been on in the background, and I put them down for a nap, and I came back into the TV room, and I started cleaning up, putting all the toys away. But now Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad PBS special was on, and I paused for this very clear moment in time. I looked up at the TV, and I'm watching him basically speak while he's selling his book. So he's educating about his book. And I'm like, this is genius. This man is doing a keynote speech to television, which means massive reach, and selling his book at the same exact time. Genius, absolute genius. And then I thought to myself very clearly, I want my own PBS special someday. No idea what the content's going to be. No idea when. I want my own. And I took a very, very clear visualization moment where I could see myself on stage. I could see myself watching myself on television. I could feel how cool it would be. And I never, ever told anyone of that aspiration. And then a few years later, I get a phone call from this man who says, hey, this is Richard Taylor, and I was given your name from so-and-so, and we're looking for a female Wayne Dyer meets Robert Kiyosaki, and we heard that might be you. And I was like, wait, what? Who referred to me as a female Wayne Dyer? I mean, that's really cool and all, but that's huge. And the guy was like, yeah, well, I want to create this PBS special, and we need a female because we've done so many men. And I was like, oh my God. And I started freaking out, screaming. And I told him, I manifested this. I watched Robert Kiyosaki's PBS special, and I manifested this moment. I never even told anyone about it. And so he said, well, honey, you're a really good manifester, because I was actually the creator and producer of Robert Kiyosaki's PBS special too.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So it was amazing. So Robert got such a kick out of the story this weekend, as you can imagine, because I met him. He'd been speaking at an event next to one of my events, actually for USANA, Heather, for the female retreat, the sweet retreat. I just told the PBS story to everybody, and everyone walks out of my speaking engagement for a break, and they see Robert Kiyosaki out in the hallway, and they're like, oh my God, Gruber, you just told the story, and Robert Kiyosaki's in the hallway. And so we went next door and we met him briefly, and then he came in and said hello to everybody. But I didn't have an opportunity to tell him that story. And so I thought it was even more cool to have reframed that story to a time where I'm his equal. And we were equals at this event speaking together. So we each spoke separately, and then we all spoke together on this panel. But Robert loved the story. He looked at me and he goes, you have the best energy. It's like infectious. It's like contagious. And the interesting thing about Robert is he's actually very negative.
Wow.
Really negative. And the sky is falling, and he is jaded.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's actually really funny, because his content did change my life. But if I had heard him speak without reading his book right now, I probably wouldn't be as drawn to following what he's saying. Oh, thank you, Heather. Appreciate that. I'm the happy version. He is so negative. It's unbelievable. So what he's saying isn't wrong. I actually agree with.
Does he recognize himself as being negative, or?
He actually said, this guy, Hal, that we're all friends with, that wrote this book, The Miracle Morning, which is an awesome book. He said Hal changed his life, that he was on such a negative path that he had created heart disease for himself and apparently had some health scares. And Hal's book taught him to meditate and taught him to create like a spiritual morning. So, and he had a Kabbalah bracelet on. So it definitely got him on a more spiritual, positive path. So the thing is I don't disagree with anything that he's saying. Like, he says school is the biggest scam, especially universities. It's the biggest financial scam in the United States. And, he was saying, all these negative things about the U.S. government's scams. And I honestly didn't disagree with one thing that he was saying. There's just more positive ways to say it and more emotionally intelligent ways to say it. So he'll get like angry versus, all right, so here's the problem. Let's be aware and let's solve the problem, or let's take a different course. He'd be like, those guys are asshole. Like, he would get so angry.
And then you came in behind him and changed the energy of the room.
Yeah, he got a kick out of me because I was like, oh, come on, Robert. I mean, listen, I get it. So he said something negative about the Me Too movement too. And I was like, jokingly, I go, Tony Robbins is still getting backlash from his comment a month ago. So I'd be a little easy with that. I go, listen, I don't disagree with Tony Robbins said either. However, there was a different way Tony Robbins could have said it. So it's not about what you're saying. So Tony, Heather, basically said that too many women, these are not his exact words, but basically he was saying there's too many women that want relevancy, that use movements like the Me Too movement that were not truly victims, but will pretend to become victims in those situations, or pretend that their situation was more traumatizing than it really was so that they can be relevant to the movement. And I agree with it completely. I really do. Listen, I was a victim of sexual abuse as a child. I was a victim of harassment. I've been a victim of all of it, right? So I get it, but I'm not a victim. That's the thing. Like, I'm not a victim. So I might have been a victim to it. Those things occurred in my life, but I've never once been a victim. And I consciously and intentionally healed and used those experiences to make me stronger. Now, are there real situations in that? Yes. I mean, I'm one of them. Are there situations that women could speak out about to be lessons to other women? Of course. But when it becomes this angry victimization strategy, it's not productive for anybody. And so I actually agreed with what Tony was saying. However, look up the video, Heather, because I would love for you to listen to it in his true words. I actually think the video was removed, but you can read the whole script or commentary about it. I think that people that are not aware enough and not emotionally intelligent enough just couldn't really understand the true depth of what he was saying. So they're interpreting it differently than what he's saying. That's really what I get out of it. And when I read other women's commentary, I feel like they're just not getting what he said because they're just not able to yet. But he was basically saying women that use this as a victimization strategy are just, number one, destroying it for the real ones that really should have a voice in a way that is meant to not bash men or shame them, for that matter even, but to wake people up to what's happening. And he used an example that I actually as a woman have used, where he said, there's a man that I know that won't hire very attractive women now for fear of what can happen. Now, women got really fired up that he said that. But the thing is he was telling a true statement. Like, that is a true thing. I have so many men in my life that, as the Me Too thing kept transpiring, that would say to me, I won't take a meeting with a woman now. Like, if I take a meeting with a woman now, there needs to be other people in the meeting for fear of like what could happen. And so my whole thing to women was, we want the pendulum to swing for like greater abilities. The pendulum's going to swing us backwards if we're not careful how we use this movement. And Tony was saying pretty much the same thing, but people just didn't take it the way that I believe he was really saying it. And quite honestly, I agree with. But the thing is that he could have softened how he said it. Yeah. So you're right, Heather. So you feel like that it removed the stigma and shame for a lot of people. I've been talking about it openly. I've been talking about it openly for a very long time, at least a decade, in my keynotes to women groups. But I speak of it from a place that is not victim or victimization. It's part of my story. Happened. But it's not coming from a place of anger or I hate men and I want to take men down and all men are bad and all men do that, which is where the movement started going, which is what his point was. It can't go there because if it goes there, good is not coming out of it, which was what his point was. And I really agree with it. And it did allow people to start talking about it a lot more and remove the stigma. The thing is that he just didn't say it in the best way he could have said it. So people took it differently than they could have. And it just created more like male backlash, which is never going to be helpful for any of us, quite honestly. Yeah, so Heather was just saying, I remember shaking in fear, typing me too, and then feeling this release right after. And yeah, so I'm not saying that just to clarify, I'm not saying the movement was bad. Tony Robbins wasn't saying the movement was bad. What he was saying is he doesn't want to see women who are just trying to use it and use it for relevancy or abuse it and make the pendulum swing the other way, which would be horrible. I feel like the emotion of the movement has calmed down a bit now, so people can maybe start to think about solutions differently. The truth is, and I'll go back to emotional intelligence again, the truth is Harvey Weinstein and all of the other people that are about, especially like people at Harvey Weinstein's level, in true human behavior, I would put $1 million on that man has had trauma in his childhood that was not dealt with, not healed, and that trauma creates that type of grotesque behavior, this sense of power and manipulation, because he's basically acting out all of his pain from his trauma from his childhood. I will put money on it. And then, of course, the societal normalcy of what it was back then, allowed it to be more normal, right? So it didn't seem as bad or grotesque because it seemed in that society, in that kind of entertainment world arena, a little bit more normal. But there was also many women. Yes, I agree. I totally agree with you. I think he was sexually abused by a woman as a child. I would say probably a woman and men. I would love to dig into his childhood. And there's not a doubt in my mind that he and all of those different various men have had trauma. So when you acknowledge that, then there's also a place of empathy. So what they did was not right at all, but there is a place of empathy. What happened to him wasn't right either. Unfortunately, the trauma never was healed, so then it just perpetuated. So if we see a traumatized child, we look at Harvey Weinstein as a traumatized child who never healed, never had guidance of how to process that, then we have to have a little bit of empathy for the adult that he became, right? So that this is true emotional intelligence conversation. This is where emotional intelligence really takes a level of true depth and height. And you look at Russell Simmons, like someone comes out about this experience 19 years later, which I don't necessarily agree with, but, or I should say, I think it needs to be handled differently. Like, I know that this happened 19 years ago. I'm speaking about it to help free other women. I don't believe that Russell Simmons is who he was 19 years ago, because he's not. I mean, he found this spiritual path and became this very spiritual being and became a spiritual leader. I mean, writing books about it and talking about it so people learn the importance of meditation. So you're going to then attack somebody of how they might have been 19 years ago, who they're not that person anymore. And I think that's what everyone has to keep in mind too, is because somebody did something 19 years ago doesn't mean that they're still that person. They could have, like Russell Simmons, got onto a healing path that they could really regret what they did, but they were, and they could be really sorry for what they did, but they weren't the same person as they are today. And so this is really where emotional intelligence is like at its true sense in our society, and why it's so important as well. Yeah, exactly. Heather wrote, I think everyone's done something 19 years ago they would never do now. Heck yeah, totally. Like, I like to grow so much in each year that I don't even think, like, look back like a few years ago and think like, oh my God, I was like an infant then. Yeah. And so why then do we all have done it. This is another issue I have. Like, why do we all take these stones and throw them at somebody without realizing if everyone put a magnifying glass in our lives, we wouldn't be too happy about it. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying we've got to be, we got to be aware of the layers of what a healthy person doesn't do what Harvey Weinstein did. So what made that man unhealthy? Yeah, Heather, I agree. I'm so happy Facebook and Instagram and social media was not around when I was a teenager myself. Oh, dear Lord, I can't even imagine. So anyway, ladies, it was so much fun with you all. Any other questions about this evening? You can unmute yourself if there is.
Thank you so much for all your shares, Jen. Your wisdom and just your whole journey is just so great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, I think for me, ultimately, the conversation around emotional intelligence, what my mission is to keep having these conversations that are maybe really uncomfortable and somewhat confrontational, in a healthy, productive way that, you know, Tony or Robert haven't mastered the finessing of. And Tony's pretty good at emotional intelligence, but Tony's such a alpha straight shooter,
yeah,
that he doesn't know necessarily how to soften what he's going to say. The same way that someone like myself, who's trained in emotional intelligence for so long, can do it. And I think that that's where our next big shift in why female speakers are going to rise.
Yeah, so just real quick, getting back to that then. So you know that they're purposely, you weren't invited with them to the event because that event does not ask women.
Has nothing to do with me, but if you look at every one of their, if you look at every one of their events, every once in a while, every once in a few cities, they'll have a female, but their lineup is always about 6 keynotes and they're all men. Every once in a while, you'll see a female. It's infuriating to me every time I see it.
Well, now I don't want to go. I'm going to throw my ticket in the trash. I'm going to go up to date, and I'm going to say, I'm here to talk about emotional intelligence.
Yeah, no, Heather, it's not a real estate event. It's Les Brown owns this company, which is baffling to me because he's a minority man. Like, well, how are you a minority man and not thinking in a term of minority like balance is baffling to me. But Les Brown owns this company that he creates in each city these different keynotes. So this year, Tony Robbins and Gary Vee are two of like their main staples in the cities. And then each city they're going to find like local heroes from. So in our city, it's the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, who is amazing, and then Nick Foles, the quarterback, who was like the winning quarterback for the Eagles, who's amazing too. So don't get me wrong. Everyone in this lineup is amazing. The problem is women we can learn from all those, but none of us can emulate. No one can be like, I want to be Tony Robbins, because we can't. There's so many unidentifiable things. Like most women are looking at Tony like, well, of course he's this big gregarious guy, and he has a wife at home taking care of all the needs to be met and taking care of the kids when his kids were younger. So there needs to be more women on stage. It's kind of like, it's like the event that I'm speaking at in May, where it was always male keynotes and then female breakout speakers. And it was kind of like this message of like, yeah, women, you're only good enough to come to that level, but talking about going to that level. And that's kind of what happens all the time. I see it all the time. I'm like part of that world. I was the only female this weekend. It was all alpha males and me.
Wow. But they asked you, they reached out to you to be there.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're just blazing a trail.
So the thing is that it's about raising awareness that there needs to be more female speakers. And a lot of the male speakers are starting to pick up on this. Like the two guys there loved that I was there. Two of the guys not just two of the guys, but a lot of their alpha male speakers made note that they're like, I love that an assertive woman like you is here. Like they made a note of like recognizing like we don't see this all the time. It's often men. So what annoys me almost about Tony and Gary is that they have been doing this long enough that they should look at the lineups and be like, where the hell are the women? Where's a woman on here? And I'm sure if Gary and Tony said that, there would be women.
You're sure of what, Gary, Tony, what?
If Gary and Tony look at the lineup in all these different cities and say to Les Brown, like, where the hell are the women in the lineup? There would be women in the lineup.
So why aren't they?
I don't know.
Ego running the show?
I don't know. I think that they also are ingrained still in this like male dominant business achievement space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, listen, I know Gary loves and respects his wife. I know Tony does, but they are the alpha male in their marriages, like way alpha male in their marriages.
Like they're just the big boss.
They're the big boss. So I don't know if they see it as much as a man that would have more of an equal. Like, so Robert Kiyosaki actually brings Kim Kiyosaki with him everywhere. That's his equal. So Kim was there.
Yeah.
And he gives her a ton of power, like he's like Kim, I mean, he gives her a lot of power and responsibility.
Right.
It's really cool to see, like, cause he's old school, like he's probably 70-some years old and he was a military guy, a Marine. So to see him do that, like, why can't the rest of them get it? I don't know.
Yeah. He's just comfortable with, I guess, who he is. And I don't know, maybe some couples have different dynamics.
Well, I know, Robert. I mean, it's like Ron Jaworski. I love Ron Jaworski. Ron Jaworski has a woman running every part of his life. Not one man. Every part of his life is run by a woman. One being his daughter, one being his wife, and then a couple more.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's cool to see when they get that. Ron always says, I would never have a man run my businesses because women do it so much better.
Yeah. What's the book? Just Ask a Woman. I think you gave me that book too.
Yeah, Just Ask a Woman. Yep. Love it. Good, such good memory, Chris. Amazing.
Oh gosh. For certain things stick in my brain, you know.
I love it. Well, listen, I'm gonna get my girls situated for bed.
All right.
But thank you all very much.
All right, Jen. Thank you so much. Heather, sorry, I hope I didn't talk too much. I just had a chime. Couldn't believe that story of all that flying.
No, not at all. It was awesome. Thank you both so much.
Oh.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks, Chris.
All right, doll. Thanks, Jen. Good night, Heather. Thanks
Good
a bunch.
night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.